started. I'm Paul
Yeah.
Shattuck.
People are joining. People understand. There's
Funny
always
you
technical
go.
difficulties,
Well,
there's
thanks
always a
for
glitch.
joining me after some technical difficulties. I'm Paul Shattuck of Stay Human and Shape Tomorrow. And I got to tell you, I'm so excited. So Larissa Rinehart of the Female Body Politic agreed to join us today. Larissa, it's great to have you.
Thank
Um,
you. So good
so
to
when
be
I
here.
started blogging a year ago, I added the podcast feature sometime last summer. And Larissa was my first guest. So this is a really nice kind of closing the circle. So at that time, Larissa, if I remember accurately, which is not a guarantee, you were getting ready to go live with your book. Like it was in press and you were getting ready to go on tour and you told us about the book. So I'm super excited to get the update, how the book tour is going, how your work is going. um, why don't you do a quick blurb about yourself and the work that you do? And then I want to take the mic back for just a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Lorissa Rinehart. I'm the author of The Female Body Politic here on Substack. That's an exploration of 250 years of women's participation in American democracy. Because guess what? We've been here the whole time in every way, and yet our story remains largely untold. So I'm trying to bring that back. And in doing so, also break down today's headlines, right, with that historical and feminist perspective. And Paul, you're so sweet to tee me up. I also just wrote Winning the Earthquake, the up there on my shelf.
Yeah, come on, bring it down, bring it close to the
Okay, all
camera.
right, I'm
We
bringing
got to see this. I have the iPad version, which is not amenable to sharing on the photo. Oh, there it is.
it is the biography of Jeanette Rankin, who was the first woman elected to Congress that no one knows about, which is insane, first of all, that we don't know her name, that she's not a household name. But the
Before
thing
women had the right to vote.
Right, and she had the right to vote in Montana, right? Like, states could have the right to vote, but not women didn't have the right to vote naturally. We can get into the nitty-gritty of that later.
No.
But she was, right, in addition, one of the 20th century's most important democratic reformers and thinkers. She was a pacifist. She called out the military industrial complex way before Eisenhower, like, even was out of elementary school. And she just really saw the future of America and the possibilities in a democracy that where truly everyone can have a voice in their government.
She
And
was
it is
visionary.
such I mean, her legacy is so prescient and timely. It's kind of wild to me, like how.
So what I was completely unprepared for. So, you came on the podcast. As you know, I had seen your work. You came on the podcast last year. You were getting ready to go on tour with the book. And I went on Amazon like right away and I put in my pre-order and I got when it came out, when did it come out? It was like
November, election day.
November. Yeah, yeah. So it came out in November and I downloaded it to the iPad, the Kindle, and I was not prepared. I was like, oh, this should be interesting. I was like, I had some preconceived notions, like, okay, history of a politician. Like, I've never been a biography reader. I don't love biographies. So I was like, oh, I should read this. And then I opened it. Holy shit. Who knew? It's a page turner.
Thank you.
I could not put it down. I mean, I sailed through that thing in less than a week. It was incredible. It was such a gripping story. And you're such a good storyteller and such a good writer. Like, you really brought her life so vividly, alive on the page and made a whole bunch of great points along the way. And then you went on tour starting in Missoula, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Jeanette was originally from Missoula. I was super blessed to be able to actually visit her ranch that she grew up on. Um, it was a friend's friend owns it now, a new friend that I met through this book tour.
Mhm.
And so I went to Missoula and I drove around Montana a lot. It was very, very interesting to see that state. I'd never been there. We went to Great Falls and Helena, the capital, which is great.
Ah.
Then I flew down to Georgia. She actually spent the sort of latter part of her life in Georgia for a number of reasons, one of which was she wanted to be close enough to Washington that she could drive there to do her disarmament lobbying work. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Georgia's so far away from Washington D.C." Well, that's only true if you're not from Montana.
Yeah, right,
It's
right.
so far apart,
Right.
and people in
Oh,
Montana
Walter.
love to drive. So I went down there. I was in Athens, where she lived, and then Atlanta. And then I just did an East Coast swing. I was at the UVA Center for Politics in New York at a couple places, the Columbia School of Journalism, where she actually got her master not journalism, social work, where
Yeah.
she actually got her master's degree. And then DC, I was super blessed to be able to, give a lot of Congress people a copy of my book, thanks to
Oh,
the
nice.
Kenneth Rankin Foundation. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I was in Chicago, thanks to my dear friend Jane Ruby at the League of Women Voters. There, she engineered for me to be able to interview Ambassador Mosley Braun, which was like
Oh,
the honor of a lifetime. I couldn't believe I was sitting on the same stage as her.
wow. Was it?
Whose life is this? But yeah, so the tour's been going great, but I have been, on the road a lot with 2 kiddos and my husband holding down the fort at home, so
Well, I've been following your news updates, and I'm like, wow, that's intense. A lot of travel. How you holding up?
I mean, it is l it l honestly, when I got back from this last swing, which was pretty intense, like, all my levels, like, my hormones, my cortisol, my adrenaline, dopamine, everything was way off,
Mm,
and I just had to, like, sleep, do exercise, and
yeah.
just spend time with my family. Like, we randomly took a day off. We all just took a day off,
Mhm.
earlier this week
Mhm.
to go
I
to
love
this
that.
random dinosaur exhibit in San Diego because we just
Mhm.
had to, like, be
Mhm.
together and come back together as a family. So, it's
You
tough.
gotta make time to charge your batteries. Like, you just
Yeah,
can't go, 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 go. That's not
yeah,
sustainable.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm seeing that a lot. I mean, it's interesting since we last talked, I kind of had this stretch of about 4 months where I was doing a lot of pro bono, kind of one-time consults with, like, indivisible chapters and people in local activism groups, just kinda touching base about what their struggles are. I mean, that's my background is organizing, and I've got a rich toolkit of ways to build, but also to stay sustainable. And we're at the just post 1 year mark of Trump 2.0, post
Yeah,
10 years mark of Trump 1.0. And a lot of people are really, struggling with this cumulative load. Like it's a lot to carry for a long time. And a lot of people haven't really, um, and I'm talking about like serious activists. Like all my consulting clients are formidable, mostly women who have, decades of experience organizing, building nonprofits, activism, consulting, and even these people who are at the top of the game are struggling to carry the load. So I've been thinking and writing a lot about like how do we build for sustainability? How do we build for endurance?
yeah.
Because this shit's not going away, right? I mean, look at oh my god, I don't even want to start listing. It's a long. We could just like spend the next hour listing all the crap that's going on. But it's not going to go away tomorrow, and so we need to find ways to restore, renew, regenerate. And we don't, we're in this hustle culture of writing, podcasting, content creation. For those of you who are not content creators, writers, solopreneurs, it's a grind, and there's a constant sort of
Mindset.
hovering economic precarity and anxiety about making ends meet and looking at your numbers, yada, yada. And it's a
And
lot.
that alone that alone is so stressful. A dear friend of mine who I do work for just, like, gave me $1,000 bonus today, and, like,
Mm, wow.
that like, my stress level totally changed, like, went from, "I don't know how I'm going to get my kids," like, my little one, his shoes are getting too small for him. I'm like, "This is an expense I have to think about," to, like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I got this," and it's, like, hard to think that $1,000 is that, you know, sort of line in the sand, but it
Big view
it
changer.
really is. It really
I
is.
totally get it.
So
We just finished our taxes. Well, we didn't finish. I did an estimated payment. I'm still waiting for a 1099 from one client. But um, when I got fired at the end of 2024 for that, I did a little post on LinkedIn expressing solidarity with federal workers right after the election. Company I was working with fired me for that. So that's what got me going on the consulting and the blogging. And I wasn't sure, like, it was a gamble, right? Like, I I've never been a writer before, not like in this way. And, so the tax preparation was kind a literal accounting, like how everything is going. And we had some savings. We did not make ends meet last year. Like, we definitely had to dip into our
Yeah.
retirement savings to close that gap. This year, not 100% sure it's gonna be that much better. Um, but there's kind of this hidden backstory, like, a lot of readers don't understand how precarious this lifestyle of content creation is. Like, we do this because we're passionate about it. You have a drive. If folks, if you haven't seen Larissa's TED Talk, like, go look it up. It's amazing. You'll be like jumping up and down, pumping your fist, right? It's a get up and go kind of TED Talk. It's amazing about the role of, the unspoken, um, hidden history of women in politics in the
Yeah.
US. We built this mission around that, and it's so passionate and so compelling and persuasive. And I know you work your ass off about it, I can tell. And you're doing amazing work, the interviews, the writing, the book touring and stuff like that. And it's your form of activism, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is how I can best affect the change I wanna see in the world, and there's a couple different, aspects to it. I write books, I write my, Substack. I try to platform women who are also making change, through lives and my podcast, although I feel like people aren't really listening to the podcast anymore. I'm mostly just doing lives.
Mhm.
And then I also, I'm organized. What I keep coming back to is community is the most important thing to staying sane and keeping going and right these incredibly difficult times and to build structures of resilience and and resistance. And so right now I've actually kind of taken a step back from this platform because I'm organizing a number of different events like
I
in person.
Yeah, the thing in Santa Barbara, right?
Yeah, so, as part of it's the inaugural year of the Santa Barbara Literary Festival, and I was really blessed to be able to program a couple events. I'm with my friend Mike Bender, who's a children's book author. I am, organizing a kids book festival as part of it, which is so important for kids to be able to just engage with books, have fun, have a safe space, and come together in community around those things. So that is also, I think, one of my greatest works of activism is to make a safe space for kids to
Ah,
enjoy and sort of get
oh, I love
into
that. Yeah.
celebrate books.
Mhm.
But then on sort of a more serious side, oh my gosh, do not know how I got to do this, but I'm interviewing Catherine Stewart, who wrote Money, Lies, and God, which is like a history of MAGA.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, with Jane Borden, who wrote Cults Like Us, Why Doomsday Thinking Thrives in America. And reading those books together is a total mind F.
Wait,
Like,
you're doing that on your platform, or is this a separate event?
no, this is part of the Santa Barbara Literary Festival.
Oh, I see, I
But
see. It's all posted.
I'm gonna talk to them because I wanna have it live streamed, because I
Cool.
think,
Yeah.
right, it's right up my viewers, it's right up my, like, community's alley. So that's happening. Then I'm chatting with Josie Cox, my dear friend and the author of Women, Money, Power is another event there. And then with Dr. Jennifer Freed, who's also on Substack, she's fantastic.
Mm,
I was really grateful to be able to help organize her event, Daring Women, which is Beatrice Dixon, founder of Honey Pot, Shannon
okay.
Watts, founder of Moms Demand Action, Justina Blakely, founder of Jungalo, and Catherine Stewart, the author of Money, Lies, and God. So it's
Oh.
just like, it's important to be online and to engage in conversations like this, to be sure. And I found so many real friends like you, Paul. Like, we're IRL friends. I can't wait to
I know,
hang
I know.
with you. But it's also important to have those in-person meetings, because
Well,
that's
really, yeah, I miss that.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm inspired by what you're saying. I've been thinking about this because 'cause I'm feeling a little isolated right now. We live in New Hampshire.
Mm,
It's still basically winter here. The winters are pretty long here. We're up in the mountains, and,
mm,
so I feel like I really need people. Like, I sit here at my computer all day consulting and writing and doing Zoom calls, but it's not the same. So I think what I'm going to do, yeah, I have this Staying Steady book toolkit that I publish, self-publish. It's on my website, and people love it. I've been selling tons, but what I really want to do is I want to do it in person. I'm inspired by your book tour. So Portland, Maine is not too far away, and they have a First Friday thing in Portland, Maine, where you can set up a table as an artist or an activist. And you don't have to register. There's no like jury committee deciding who can participate. You just show up. So I've got a folding table. I'm going to go next month. I'm going to
Should
set
go.
up Friday. I'm going to make a little table display. And I don't care if I sell anything. I just want to talk to people. I want to like mingle with real people in real time, have conversations about what's going on in our world and, have like get more of that in-person experience. Tell me about that. Like, what's that like for you when you go on book tour? You're like, here you are in some random bookstore, someplace you've never been before. You parachute in and they introduce you. You probably do a little reading. Like, how does that feel? What's that like?
Okay, so those are 2 different questions. Like, how does that feel for people to, like, have read my book and think I'm special is bizarre. And then to have, like, an audience, I'm
You're
like,
like,
"Are you sure
wait,
that
who, me?
So,
Oh, come on, own it, own it.
yeah, Bradley Univer what's that?
Own it, own it.
I know, I'm trying to. But I was, like, recently at Bradley University, which is a lovely university in Peoria, and it was just, like, a packed crowd, and, this woman who is the director of the, Dillinger Center interviewed me, and everyone was just, like, so, lauding my book and thanking me, and I was like, just blown away, but also, grateful, but very humbled because this is just the expression of who I am. Like you were saying earlier, it's a hustle, it's a grind, and it is, but I don't know any other way of living.
Right.
And so to be able to find community in doing that is incredible. So it's one thing to be on stage, but then, one of the questions that people always ask me is do you see any or one of the questions that I'm always asked at these events, right, is like, do you see any politicians right now who remind you of Jeanette Rankin? And my response is always like, everyone in this audience reminds me of Jeanette Rankin, right? It's not about the leaders, it's not about the politicians, it's about the individual citizens showing up to do the work. Like, that's where democracy resides and
Right.
grows and thrives or dies.
Mhm.
And so it's these people, right? Because the story of Jeanette Rankin is the story of a renewed sense of democracy. I mean, she was, since we're getting into it, right? She advocated for ranked choice voting, multiple member
Oh, yeah,
congressional
right.
districts,
Mhm.
universal absentee voting, and abolishing the electoral college as
Right.
early as 1912. Okay. So these are things that we're still talking about today. And I think increasingly we're recognizing that without them, our democracy is doomed. We
Yeah,
need serious electoral reforms.
yeah.
And so you see all these people coming out to this my events talking about Jeanette Rankin, and they're getting fired up about systemic and
Okay.
and electoral reform, and that is where I get so much of my hope and
Right,
optimism
right.
about getting through this moment. And without those in person meetings, I have a great community here on Substack. And I do a lot of Zooms with folks that I can't get together with,
Mhm.
all over the country. Uh, but it is, right, the energy of that room and the sense of being in community with each other, but also I think a lot about like what is this idea of being in a congregation,
Mm.
whether that's like secular and non-secular. And it's this idea that, when we gather together, we allow the possibility for that which is holy to occupy all of us. And
Okay.
to me, right, like that which is holy is the spirit of democracy. And that's what I see in these gatherings.
Well, that's a little different from the holy vision of Pete Hegseth, I would.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Roll.
It's the price we pay for paying attention. I was just watching the clip of him reading the non-scripture scripture that was actually a line from some movie.
Pulp Fiction.
Oh, fiction, right? Okay.
Pulp
Oh my God.
Fiction.
Yes.
A movie about violence in which Quentin Tarantino made Uma Thurman break her back while doing a stunt.
Oh, I had no idea. I
Yeah.
actually have never seen the movie. I don't wanna see the
Yes.
Yeah.
I get
Oh my god, wow. Well, I don't I think that's another I would love to hear you talk about, so for listeners and readers, Larissa's kind of brand is as a historian of, women in American politics for the past 250 years. But I think what is easy to miss at that gloss is a lot of your content and a lot of your conversations are about this level of structural reform.
Yeah.
It's not incidental. Like it's not a coincidence, right? That Jeanette Rankin, um, the early social workers, Jane Addams, I mean, she was part of that generation of women who were thinking deeply in the aftermath of the Civil War and before women. There was like this period, right, between the Civil War and when women could vote, um,
Yeah.
when women were doing a lot of the leading thinking about political reform measures that would expand participation in democracy and expand economic and political justice, right,
Yes.
in this country. Talk to us a little bit about that. How really the history of women in politics in U.S. is also fundamentally the history of progressive political thinking.
I mean, right, because the mere presence of women in the voting booth or in a legislative body is revolutionary in and of itself, right? And so often history portrays suffrage as this, just minor incident in American history that only affected women. But
Right.
the reality is that suffrage fundamentally changed American democracy and was the second American Revolution because it expanded the idea of who and what is we the people by 100%, right? 100% more people could vote, 50% more people could vote in American democracy after suffrage was uh, ratified. It also fundamentally changed, right? Who is a human?
Right.
Like, who is a full citizen in the United States? Before suffrage, women actually were not great. Of course, they couldn't vote, but we are also subject to the Comstock laws. We couldn't own property. We weren't able to open a bank account. We couldn't
Mhm.
buy a house, so on and so forth. And these were changes that resulted because of suffrage, right? Without women having the right to vote, we would still not be able to have a credit card.
Yeah.
Um, but because, right, women have this fundamentally revolutionary mindset, right, that even to believe that we should have the right to vote before we could was a revolution and a revolutionary idea. Uh, so many of these women were able to then view, right, what goes beyond, what's next. And one of them was Jeanette Rankin. Another one of them was Alice Paul. Of course, she was a famous suffragist as well.
Mhm.
Um, and she drafted what became the ERA in 1921. And we're still fighting to get the ERA ratified. For those of you who don't know, it's the Equal Rights Amendment, and it is the radical idea that women should be equal under the law. And that's still, somehow a flashpoint. But it is just to say that, Alice Paul didn't create the ERA in a vacuum and she didn't pull it out of her hat, right? These were ideas that were being talked about throughout the suffrage movement and throughout the progressive movement in that, early 20th century.
Right.
So, yeah, it is, you know, despite the fact that it is often erased, women have, and particularly Black women and women of color, have always been on the forefront of progressive political thinking in this country. And I just want to pause to make the point that, it's far too uncanny and indicative that the last two presidents that we have had in this moment of constitutional crisis, whether it's Joe Biden or Donald J. Trump, are really old men on the door of death.
Right.
And they are just an embodiment, right, of the system of democracy in which we live that has not been allowed to grow or renew itself. And
I
don't get me
know.
wrong, I think Joe Biden is like fine or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trashing him. but we also have to acknowledge his age and this why is it that the system at this time, particularly in our history, elected these 2 men who
Yeah.
are so very old. It's just far too, indicative of everything, that we're experiencing.
Yeah, 100%. I hear you. I just posted something on Substack, which everyone should go watch immediately after this. In the notes, I found a clip. I've been having fun, like finding clips of people like AOC and Mamdani.
Mhm.
1 minute clips, just like on fire, and it was just this classic Mamdani interview moment where he's kind of critiquing the war in Iran and all the money that's going into the war and how that could be so much better spent here at home. Like radical idea. But again, there's something about the youthfulness of people like Mamdani, AOC, some of the women that you're interviewing on your platform. I mean, I'm an old white guy. Like I'm 63, right? I know, like I'm happy to be kind of in like the chronicling. I'm happy to be in the bleachers right now. My moment to lead the charge is kind of past. So I'm just super excited to platform and elevate people like you, old folks like Isaac, who was on the podcast earlier this week, who's just this amazing young person, future leader. It's exciting. It's having been a young leader at one point in my 20s and 30s. It's exciting to watch this new crop of
Yeah.
talent like step up. And you're so right. Like I'm just so done with electing 80-year-old men and women, to Congress.
Yeah. I mean, I do wanna say, right, like, one of my favorite, like, you know, allyships in the government right now is AOC and Bernie Sanders. I
I
just
know.
love them together, and it's
It's cute, isn't it? I mean, I hate saying that
so
word.
cute.
Is that condescending? But it's really fucking cute.
So cute. I mean, it's just adorable, but it's also right. I mean, we can't have all old people in our leadership, but nor
Right.
can we have all young people, right? It
Yeah.
has to be a
Yeah,
mix.
100%. Yeah.
And Bernie Sanders has done an amazing job and others, but credit where credit due is Bernie is amazing of being a mentor to these young leaders and being right the one to pass on that institutional knowledge. We can't just throw everyone out just because of their age. That's ageism. But we do, but it's not okay just to have right these leaders calcifying in office because it's quaint and it's cozy and it's easy for
Yeah.
everyone, and I love David Hogg, and I think he's doing such a great job of elevating young leaders and also shaking up this idea that you can't run against a Democrat. And there is the argument, right? Like a lot of these Democrats with seniority have really important committee positions and chairpersonships and so on and so forth. But it's i- the system has really been abused
Sure.
to the point that I'm sorry, we do have to turn some tables over, even if that means losing some,
Yeah.
plum posts on these committees.
Who are you?
With
Like
new
you have
ideas.
this unique vantage point because you make this your business, right? Like you've got this commanding view of the emerging crop of women leaders, right? Who are you really excited about these days? Like you've
Oh man, the list is long. The list is long. Like, I love, uh I love, Daniela Ramirez in Chicago, Teresa Fernandez out of New Mexico, Melanie Stansbury, Sarah Elfreth. Like every day a new woman in Congress is popping up and making a difference and speaking out and doing amazing things. And then just like on a local level, there's a lot of women running for office, right? In Virginia, when this last special election, you saw that first women running for office for the first time were what flipped Virginia's
right.
state legislature from um, red to blue. Of course, Spanberger is amazing. Mikey Sherrill. I mean, okay, I'll stop just like listing off, but I would just say it's been very interesting to me and very heartening, right? I don't want to say the silver lining, but the other side of this coin of male idiocy in office is that it is no longer possible for a competent woman to look at government and believe she couldn't do a better job, right? Like, they're so dumb. They're so awful that every woman with 2 neurons is like, "No, no, 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 sweetheart. I can do better than you, and I'm gonna run and show you." And you're really seeing that, right? It's this, like, collapse of I'm not saying it's a total collapse of imposter syndrome, but I think it is, right, this huge break in the ice of women no longer feeling like they're imposters because these guys are just totally not only incompetent, but just morally irreprehensible.
Do you think there's, this might be a stretch, and this is kind of armchair sociology here, but what's interesting, having been like pretty deep in the recovery movement and a lot of like personal growth stuff in the last couple decades, there's been, I think it predated Trump 1.0, but it certainly got accelerated when Trump got elected the first time. There's been a notable increase in like social media influencer, mental health influencer, relationship influencer content about narcissism, setting boundaries, not being a people pleaser. Like there's an avalanche of books now in the last 10 years about these, mostly pitched towards women. And I was reading an article, I think in the New York Times this morning, about like shifting norms around dating, right? There's more women in their 40s dating younger men for the first
Mm.
time ever. And it's like a major shift on all the dating platforms. They're now all busily trying to catch up with this trend and accommodate women who are older who are dating younger men. And it was really fascinating to think about. There's like this collective buildup of like, I'm so sick of this shit, right? And
Yeah.
that's like why would this content take off? Like why would anybody be viral by providing content about setting boundaries, dealing with narcissists, not being a people pleaser? Like the political stuff you're talking about, the rise of women, it's almost like the political world corollary of this collective fed upness, right? With
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Women don't want okay, so for like all of time, women have been molding and contorting and twisting themselves into just the right shape to
right,
be, maybe possibly pleasing to the lowest common denominator of dude. And now that women have, some degree of economic freedom and some degree of opportunity, equal access to education, right?
mm,
We are kind of asking a similar thing. Like, if you want to be our partner, if you want to have sex with us in a heterosexual relationship, you need to also bring something to that, not just take from it, which has
right,
been sort of the traditional patriarchy, male female romantic relationship. I
mm,
give, you take. And that just doesn't that's not sustainable, right? If you're a woman working 60 to 70 hours a week at a top boss job, right, you're not going to also want to just give, 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 give to your sort of ne'er-do-well male partner for no particular reason other than he's asked. And
right.
so we are seeing that shift. And, going from sort of the personal to the political, right? We're seeing these giant cultural shifts that the Trump administration and sort of the larger global fascist authoritarian movements are trying to put back in the bottle, which is to
Oh,
roll women's progress back so that
totally.
they can, right, sustain this patriarchal idea of relationship to work, labor, and value.
Mhm.
And I mean, they're succeeding to a certain extent. You look at the number of women exiting
Yeah,
the workforce, particularly Black women, right? Like, they're winning on that score. But what they can't do in short order is change the knowledge that this is not right, that this is
right.
not fair, that we are equal, and
Mhm.
that we should change the system in order to make it reflective of our fundamental human rights. And so, yeah, just going back to your question of like, is there that shift? I do think there is that shift. And I also see I just want to say, like, on this platform in particular, I see a lot of women, a lot of men like you, Paul, and others just like calling out the total bullshit and absolute double standards that women have always had to deal with. And I really appreciate the men doing that work because it doesn't happen, right? The actual change, the actual revolution doesn't happen without our allies. So I'm super grateful to you for doing that work.
Oh, okay, that's really that's very kind. I had a pretty unique upbringing that for someone of my generation, my parents were latecomers to having kids. They had kids in their 30s. And my parents, when they met and got married, they were both devout, like super devout Catholics,
Mm.
very religious. And when they first got married, they spent their first 2 years working in a soup kitchen. They were part of this thing called the Catholic Worker Movement, which was, you know that? So
Yeah, my
Dorothy,
stepfather, who has passed away, was really involved with the Catholic worker movement, and
yeah, so my parents
that
knew Dorothy Day and Peter Moran, who founded that. Dorothy Day, for those of you who don't know, was of almost the same generation as Jeanette Rankin,
no, she
and
was. They were friends.
they were friends. Oh, really? Okay, and
Yep,
so Dorothy Day, if I remember, I think she was a convert to Catholicism.
she
A
was.
rep
She
Yeah,
was.
and she founded it's basically a Catholic socialist movement, and she created these soup kitchens, which were kinda reminiscent of the Jane Addams, settlement house movement. And my parents went to Paterson, New Jersey, and they worked in that for 2 years, and then they got reassigned by the Catholic Worker Org, and they moved to Nova Scotia, and they did labor organizing with lobster fishermen in their 30s, and then they ended up having 2 kids, and so I grew up, like, really steeped in that, I grew up in this, like, social justice, Catholic socialist
No
mix,
wonder we get along.
I know,
That's
it's
about
really funny.
time.
And my dad, in his late 30s, my dad went to graduate school to become a sociologist. He got a job at a Jesuit university,
Mm.
and then we lived right down the road from a Maryknoll Sisters, convent where in the Mar and we used to go there, like, every month, and they had this, like, little bookstore where they had books on, like, liberation theology and Catholic social worker, socialism, and stuff like this, and these women were amazing. They would do these slideshow presentations of their work around the world, which was really like community organizing. They were in
Mhm.
China and Africa, these it was inspiring. And then my mom was brilliant. She was, like, really, really smart. She grew up in a very poor working class family. Her
Mm.
dad died when she was a kid. Her mom worked as a secretary, raised 2 kids. My mom finished high school when she was 15, and she got a full scholarship to Syracuse University right about the time, the soldiers were coming back from World War II.
Mm.
She was like a 16-year-old beautiful young woman, one of maybe a few hundred on campus. Because for her generation, it was weird, right, to go to university, that was not a commonplace.
Right, yeah.
And my mom, God bless her, she struggled a lot with mental health, like, it was a lot to carry, like, she didn't have mentorship, she didn't know how to hold all that. And she struggled with alcoholism and mental health problems a lot. But I got sensitized to these issues kind of through those personal experiences growing up and reading. I mean, I was in high school. I was reading like The Women's Room and Simone de Beauvoir and stuff. Like it was present for me in a way that I think most men haven't had access to growing up.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think it is right, just from a storyteller's perspective, it's sad that we do not give young men and boys, right, this idea that women are also fundamental agents in their own life because that makes for only half the story of the world. And so it's
Mhm.
not just about, right, and I have 2 sons and I tr you know, try to give them a equitable education, right, that is rich, with the world's diversity and all of its beautiful forms, not only because it's just, but also because it's just interesting. It's just more it's, like, fascinating to learn that way, and you
Mhm.
have a richer life and you have richer experiences as you continue to live your life. So, I think so often sort of focus on, right? Social justice is this idea of I'm going to get mine because you have yours, rather than if we all participate in this together equitably, we all get to enjoy a much more beautiful world and a much more fulfilling life.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Well, listen, we're running out of time. I wanna, like, conclude. I always end these interviews with the same question, what are you doing to stay human these days? We're living in hard, crazy fucking times, and everybody's got their different tricks and hacks, and, you mentioned a few of them during the interview, but when you think about this issue of kind of building endurance and sustainability for the long haul of this work that we do, what are some things, like, what are some tips? What are you learning about yourself and how to stay strong and how to stay steady in these times?
I would just say recently I've had this really revelatory experience where I have had to reckon with the demons of my past and telling me that I am not enough,
Oof.
and that
Yeah.
I'm not of infinite worth and value. And I've really had to look that in the face and heal from that. I would just say, the personal is the political. It is revolutionary to love yourself, particularly as a woman or a marginalized person. If you find yourself overwhelmed with the world, which you certainly have every right to be, I would just take a moment or a minute or a year or however long it takes and cultivate that sense of self love, because the authoritarians cannot conquer a people who are uh, confident and joyful and able to come together in empathetic solidarity. And you can't do that if you don't love yourself entirely and completely. So
Mhm,
that's something that I've been doing. And then the second thing is just creating community, finding friends, it could be
mhm,
a King's March, Indivisible, reading a club, a book club, or a sewing circle, whatever it is. Um, Find your people, find your community. It is a solve that, I think robbed of by, the oligarchy and the technocracy or whatever it's called. And like,
yeah. The manosphere. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's really lovely. I really appreciate hearing that. It's pretty validating because a lot of the stuff I've been writing about is around befriending yourself and self mercy and letting go of shame because I see it all the time. And the people that I hear from around the blog, the groups that I'm consulting with, the nonprofits, the leaders I consult with, like in my experience, myself included, similar experience to you, the self journey of not being so fucking hard on myself, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, why is that so hard to let go? But boy, progressive people, like the best among us, like can be pretty brutal on themselves and unforgiving and punishing. And it's so weirdly ironic, right? That here we are with this gang of fools leading the country who I'm guaranteeing you never lose a wink of sleep. Like second guessing
Wondering if they're good
second
enough.
guessing their value or am I good enough, right?
Yeah.
And here we are, like kind, caring people who love our community and love our kids, and we're like beating ourselves up, like I'm not good enough, blah blah blah, and letting that shit go. Like how profound that is, and yet I don't see it's. There's not a lot of in between space. There's like the weirdness of the Instagram wellness stuff that it leaves me flat. I don't like it. And then there's like, oh, go march, pick up the banner and be relentless and go, go, go all the time. And there's not a lot of this like in between. Yeah, I hate to use the word self care, but like, how do we take care of ourselves as people who care about the world and heal those things that so many of us are carrying, right? Whether you're a woman, a black person, someone who was abused, or whatever. Like, there's a lot of different ways that we get beat up in life from different systems. And those things leave a mark, right? And they impair our ability to engage in community, engage in social change and democracy. And what's that middle space territory that we can claim and talk about without collapsing into like wellness speak? Um,
Well, I think the first thing to do is realize that you can't monetize self-love, right? It's free. And that if you're on a platform that is about making money off of you, I guarantee you that you're not gonna find the tools of self-love there. They're gonna be in your community. They're gonna be in yourself. They're gonna be in, the beauty of the natural world, right? And it's looking for them there and asking for them there. And
Right.
so it's really difficult to find online because that's by and large not where it is, except for, with a few exceptions like folks like you, Paul. But right, that's not the algorithm doesn't sort of prioritize self-love because it's free, and that's not what the algorithm likes.
Right, right. That's yeah, I mean, the algorithm requires us to be broken, right?
Yeah,
So that we will buy things that are pitched as making us whole again.
exactly, exactly.
Larissa, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the work, the leadership, the devotion, really. It's a devotion, you had kind of a nod to the spiritual dimension of this work earlier in our talk, and you bring a lot of profound devotion to this work, and it shows up in the book, it shows up in your the way that you talk to people on your podcast, the way that you write, the way you express yourself. It's beautiful. And it's a loving act. It's not just a political act. And it really comes through. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate that.
You will. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.